Cannes Film Festival's most glamorous night suddenly stopped when Tom Hardy halted mid-stride on the red carpet. Security guards were trying to remove a man from the area when Hardy witnessed their intervention. His reaction in that moment became one of the most talked about incidents in festival history, because the man Hardy stopped for was actually his oldest friend. The French Riviera sparkled under a canopy of stars as the 76th Cannes Film Festival reached its crescendo. The Palais des Festivals glowed with golden light, its iconic steps draped in crimson carpet that had witnessed decades of cinematic history. Tonight was the premiere of Warrior's Return, Tom Hardy's most personal project yet, a film about military brotherhood that had taken him 5 years to bring to the screen. Hardy stood in his hotel suite at the Carlton, adjusting the bow tie of his bespoke Tom Ford tuxedo. The midnight blue fabric caught the light perfectly, tailored to his muscular frame with precision that only the world's finest craftsmen could achieve. His stylist, Marina Rodriguez, put the finishing touches on his appearance, ensuring every detail was flawless for what would undoubtedly be one of the most photographed moments of the festival. "You look perfect, Mr. Hardy," Marina said, stepping back to admire her work. "The photographers are going to love this look." Hardy nodded absently, his mind elsewhere. Through the hotel window, he could see the crowds already gathering along the Croisette, barriers lined with fans hoping to catch a glimpse of their favorite stars. The energy was electric, but something felt different tonight. Perhaps it was the weight of the film he was about to present, a story so close to his heart that it sometimes felt more like exposure therapy than entertainment. His phone buzzed with a text from his publicist. "Car arrives in 10 minutes. Remember, you have interviews with CNN, BBC, and Entertainment Tonight before the screening. Stay on message about the film's themes of brotherhood and sacrifice." Hardy pocketed the phone without responding. He'd done enough interviews to know the routine, but tonight felt different. This wasn't just another film premiere. It was a tribute to the men he'd served with, the brothers he'd gained and lost in equal measure. 20 minutes later, Hardy's sleek black Mercedes pulled up to the festival entrance. The sound hit him first, a wall of noise from photographers, reporters, and fans that seemed to shake the very air. Camera flashes created a strobe effect that turned the evening into something surreal, almost dreamlike. "Ready, Mr. Hardy?" asked his security chief, David Chen, a former military man himself who understood the significance of tonight's event. Hardy straightened his jacket and stepped out of the car. The crowd erupted. Hundreds of photographers called his name simultaneously, their voices blending into a cacophony that would have been overwhelming for most people. But Hardy had learned to navigate these moments with the same focus he'd once applied to military operations. Steady breathing, clear objectives, measured movements. He began his walk up the red carpet, stopping at designated photo opportunities. Each pause was choreographed, a slight turn to the left for the agencies, a smile and wave for the fans, a moment of serious contemplation for the art photographers who preferred their shots less posed. The routine was familiar, almost meditative in its predictability. Halfway up the carpet, Hardy paused for a longer interview with a French television host. "Mr. Hardy, this film seems deeply personal to you. Can you tell us about the inspiration?" "It's about the bonds that form between people who've shared impossible experiences," Hardy replied, his voice carrying the weight of memory. "About how those connections transcend everything else, time, distance, circumstance. It's about brotherhood in its purest form." The interviewer nodded appreciatively. "And the military setting. Because that's where I learned what real brotherhood means," Hardy said simply. As he moved further up the carpet, Hardy felt the familiar rhythm of the event. Pose, move, smile, wave, repeat. The photographers were getting the shots they needed, the journalists were collecting their sound bites, and the fans were experiencing their moment of connection with someone they admired from afar. But then, just as Hardy reached the halfway point of the red carpet, something caught his eye in the crowd beyond the barriers. At first, it was just movement. Security guards converging on someone in the public viewing area. Nothing unusual. Overzealous fans occasionally tried to breach the barriers, and festival security was well trained to handle such situations quickly and discreetly. But as Hardy watched, he saw them grabbing a man who didn't look like a typical fan. This person was older, probably in his 50s, wearing a worn but clean jacket that looked military in style. There was something about his posture, the way he carried himself despite being manhandled by security, that made Hardy look closer. The man wasn't fighting the guards, wasn't creating a scene. He was simply trying to explain something, his hands moving in gestures that Hardy recognized, the measured, controlled movements of someone with military training. Even from a distance, there was something familiar about the man's profile, something that made Hardy's chest tighten with recognition. "Keep moving, Mr. Hardy," David whispered from behind him. "You have the next interview scheduled." But Hardy had stopped completely now, ignoring the confused looks from photographers and the gentle pressure from his team to continue. He was staring at the man being led away by security, his mind racing through memories, trying to place the familiar face, and then it hit him like a physical blow. Marcus Webb, Sergeant Marcus Webb, 2nd Battalion, Parachute Regiment, the man who had saved Hardy's life in Helmand Province 12 years ago. Without warning, Hardy broke from his position on the red carpet. He didn't walk, he strode, with military precision toward the barriers, his expensive shoes clicking against the stone steps as photographers scrambled to follow his unexpected movement. "Tom! Tom, where are you going?" Voices called out behind him. But Hardy's focus was laser sharp, trained on the security guards who were now halfway to the exit with Marcus. "Excuse me!" Hardy's voice cut through the chaos with unmistakable authority. The guards stopped, surprised to see one of the festival's star guests approaching them directly. Hardy reached the barrier and vaulted over it with an athleticism that surprised the crowd. His perfectly tailored tuxedo handled the movement gracefully, but several photographers caught the moment, their cameras capturing what would become one of the most iconic images of the festival. "Release him," Hardy said firmly as he approached the security team. His voice carried the quiet command of someone accustomed to being obeyed. The head security guard, a burly Frenchman named Philippe, looked confused. "Monsieur Hardy, this man was attempting to disrupt the event. We are simply maintaining order." Hardy looked directly at Marcus, who had raised his head in disbelief. Time seemed to stop as the two men locked eyes. Marcus looked older, weathered by years that hadn't been kind to him. His face bore lines that spoke of struggles Hardy could only imagine, but his eyes, those were the same eyes that had looked back at Hardy from across a battlefield, calm and steady under fire. "Marcus Webb," Hardy said softly, and the recognition in his voice was unmistakable. Marcus's composure cracked slightly. "Tom, I wasn't trying to cause trouble. I just wanted to see you, to congratulate you on the film. I read about it in the paper, about what it meant to you." The security guards looked between the two men, clearly uncertain how to proceed. Philippe spoke up again. "Monsieur Hardy, this man has no credentials, no invitation. We cannot allow—" "This man," Hardy interrupted, his voice growing stronger, "is the reason I'm alive to make films at all." He turned to face the gathering crowd of photographers and onlookers who had followed him from the red carpet. "Sergeant Marcus Webb saved my life in Afghanistan. He's not disrupting anything. He's the guest of honor." A murmur ran through the crowd. Some photographers began taking pictures of Marcus, sensing a story that went far deeper than a typical red carpet moment. Festival officials began converging on the scene, their faces showing various degrees of concern and confusion. Hardy turned back to the security guards. "Release him, now." Philippe hesitated. "Monsieur, we have protocols." "I don't care about your protocols," Hardy said, his voice rising for the first time. "This man is a decorated war veteran who served his country with honor. If you don't release him immediately, I'll walk off this red carpet and there won't be a premiere tonight." The threat landed with the weight Hardy intended. The festival couldn't afford to lose their headlining star, especially not in such a public, photographed moment. Philippe reluctantly nodded to his team, and they stepped back from Marcus. Hardy immediately moved forward and embraced his old friend. The hug was long, tight, and completely unconscious of the dozens of cameras capturing every second. Marcus's shoulders shook slightly, and those close enough could see tears in both men's eyes. "I can't believe you're here," Hardy said quietly, his voice thick with emotion. "How did you find me?" Marcus pulled back slightly, wiping his eyes. "I've been following your career, mate. When I heard about this film, about what it was really about, I had to come. I used my last bit of savings to get here. I just wanted to see you succeed, to tell you how proud I am." The words hit Hardy like a physical blow. While he'd been building his career, accumulating wealth and fame, Marcus had been struggling. That much was clear from his appearance, from the fact that coming to Cannes had cost him his last bit of savings. Festival director Claire Dubois approached cautiously, her diplomatic training evident in her measured tone. "Mr. Hardy, perhaps we could handle this situation more privately. The premiere is scheduled to begin in 30 minutes. Hardy turned to face her, his expression making his position clear. "Marcus Webb is my guest for the evening. He'll be sitting with me at the premiere, and he'll be attending the after-party. Is that going to be a problem?" Dubois glanced at Marcus's casual attire, clearly calculating the optics of having an improperly dressed guest at such a high-profile event. "Mr. Hardy, while we certainly want to accommodate your wishes, there are dress code requirements." "Then we'll fix that," Hardy said immediately. He turned to his assistant. "Call the hotel. Get them to send over one of my backup tuxedos. Have it delivered here within 20 minutes. He looked back at Marcus. "What size are you now, brother?" Marcus smiled for the first time since Hardy had spotted him. "Still the same as when we were kit up together," Hardy nodded. "Perfect. You're going to clean up and join me for this premiere. Because this film, it's about us, Marcus. About all of us who served. You should be here for it." The crowd had grown now, with more festival attendees and media gathering to witness this unexpected drama. Social media was already buzzing with photos and speculation about who this mystery man was and why Tom Hardy had abandoned protocol to defend him. Marcus looked overwhelmed. "Tom, I appreciate this, but I don't want to cause you any trouble. These people, this world, it's not for people like me." Hardy placed a firm hand on Marcus's shoulder. "Don't ever say that. This world, my world, it only exists because of people like you, because of what you did, what we all did over there. You have more right to be here than any of us." By now, Hardy's publicist had arrived, her face showing the strain of trying to manage a completely unscripted situation. "Tom, we need to get back on schedule. The press is asking questions, and we need to control the narrative here." Hardy looked at her with an expression that made her step back. "The narrative is simple. I found my brother, and he's joining me tonight. End of story." Behind them, the festival machinery was adapting to this unexpected development. Security guards were being briefed on the new situation, festival officials were updating their seating charts, and the press was being fed carefully crafted statements about Hardy's surprise guest. 20 minutes later, Marcus emerged from a festival office wearing one of Hardy's tuxedos. The transformation was remarkable. Cleaned up and properly dressed, he looked every inch the distinguished veteran he was. The years of struggle were still visible in his face, but so was the bearing of a man who had served with honor. Hardy grinned when he saw his friend. "Now that's the Marcus Webb I remember." They walked toward the theater entrance together, Hardy having refused to continue his red carpet appearances until Marcus was ready to join him. The photographers went wild as the two men posed together, Marcus looking uncomfortable but proud as Hardy kept a steadying hand on his shoulder. "Ladies and gentlemen," Hardy announced to the gathered press, "I'd like you to meet Sergeant Marcus Webb, a true hero and the inspiration for tonight's film." As the lights dimmed and the film began, Hardy leaned over to Marcus. "This one's for all of us who made it back, and especially for those who didn't." Marcus nodded, his eyes already fixed on the screen. "They'd be proud, mate. We all are." The film played to a standing ovation, but for Hardy, the most meaningful moment came when he looked over and saw Marcus wiping tears from his eyes during a particularly emotional scene about brotherhood and sacrifice. During the post-screening interviews, Hardy made sure to bring Marcus into the conversation. "This film exists because of men like Marcus Webb," he told reporters. "He's the real hero in this story." The after-party at the Carlton Hotel was in full swing when Hardy and Marcus finally arrived together. The sight of the famous actor with his mysterious companion had already become the story of the night, with entertainment reporters scrambling to understand the connection. Hardy made sure Marcus met everyone, directors, producers, fellow actors, and each time he introduced his friend with pride. "This is Marcus Webb, a decorated war veteran and the man who saved my life." Marcus, despite his initial discomfort, began to relax as the evening progressed. The tuxedo helped, but more importantly, Hardy's unwavering support gave him confidence. When a prominent director asked about his military service, Marcus spoke eloquently about leadership under pressure, about the bonds formed in extreme circumstances. The thing about combat, Marcus explained to a captivated group, is that it strips away everything superficial. You see people for who they really are. Tom was always the kind of soldier you wanted beside you, calm under fire, loyal to the end. Hardy looked out at the water, his expression thoughtful. Because 12 years ago, you didn't hesitate to risk everything to save me. Tonight, you needed saving in a different way. That's what brothers do for each other. Marcus nodded slowly. I've been struggling, mate. Lost my job, lost my way after we came back. Seeing your success, it kept me going sometimes, knowing one of us had made it. You made it too, Hardy said firmly. You survived. You're here. You're still fighting. That's making it. Over the following weeks, Hardy made sure Marcus got the help he needed. Not charity, but connection. He introduced him to other veterans in his network, helped him find work as a military consultant on film projects, and most importantly, brought him back into the Brotherhood that both men had thought they'd lost. Sometimes, the most important moments happen not when cameras are planned, but when they capture something real, something human. That night in Cannes, the world saw past the glamour and glitz to witness something much more valuable, the unbreakable bond between two men who had shared the impossible, lost each other, and found their way back. Tom Hardy understood that no red carpet, no matter how prestigious, was more important than the people who had helped pave his way to it.